Hugh Freeze keeps adding talent to his Auburn roster. Have the Tigers caught the tide in terms of average star? Welcome on into the Auburn Express Power by the Board, where I'm your host, Mike D, and thank you so much for making us your first listeners every single day. It's Wednesday. It's Thursday, and it's time to get going. We're getting going this morning. One day we're gonna have our own show, my friend.
Yeah, that's right.
But we have this show today, and today we're talking about Auburn and Alabama. Obviously, this is one of the most revered rivalries in college football. That rivalry extends past the game, Jacob, and it extends to recruiting. Everything that's happening right now. The Tide were put out of the College World Series. The Tigers are hosting their first super regional. Auburn and Alabama never stopped competing, but especially on the football field. As we all know, Kalen DeBoer is going into his second year at Alabama. Hugh Freeze is killing recruiting. They are no longer getting whoever they want from the state in terms of recruiting. But recruiting is still strong in Alabama. And today we're going to answer the question, has Auburn caught Alabama in terms of talent? Do the Tide still have a more talented team than Auburn? I'm not so sure they do. As a matter of fact, this might be the first time in a long time, Jacob, where we're looking at the Alabama quarterback position, and we've got some questions.
Yeah. It's so funny with Alabama, where during Nick Saban's tenure for 75% of it, it was always, well, they're going to have a solid quarterback. He's going to be smart. He's going to make the right decisions. He's not going to blow you away with talent, but he's not going to make mistakes, and he's going to help you win football games. That was the Greg McElroys and the A.J. McCarrons of the world. And then all of a sudden, college football decided, hey, let's start to idolize the quarterback some more. And you had some dudes start dominating college football, and Nick Saban said, well, we should probably get our hands on some of those. So they went and found Jalen Hurts and Tua and those types of guys and the Jalen Milrose of the world, and they started having Heisman-winning quarterbacks. And so you look at what Alabama has this year with such a big question mark at the quarterback spot compared to what Auburn has, which in the very limited Hugh Freeze era probably has the most confidence in the quarterback room right now that we've seen so far. You ask the question, has Auburn caught up to Alabama in overall team talent? And without seeing it on the field yet in 2025, I'm going to say Auburn is closer than they've been in a long, long time. Am I willing to say that Auburn is completely there yet? No, I'm not, because I don't think that's accurate. But we've seen over the past couple of years, Auburn trending up in recruiting and Alabama trending a little bit down. Not that they haven't gotten good players. We know they've got the Ryan Williams of the world and things like that, but Auburn is making up ground. And you said it, the fact that Alabama is not just getting whoever they want. They're not dominating this state. They're not dominating the South anymore. Auburn has made significant strides and waves and really a ripple effect in what Alabama used to do. And so has Auburn caught up completely? No, but they've made up so much ground in the last couple of years. This might just be the year, though, Mike. We see all of it on the field between Auburn and Alabama leading up to the Iron Bowl, and then when they go head-to-head in Jordan-Hare, maybe Auburn has truly caught up to them, but I'm going to need to see it on the field before I fully make that statement.
Now, we've heard the saying, usually it's Alabama beating bad Auburn teams, but they very rarely beat a good Auburn team. When Auburn is good, they win this rivalry. You know, I wonder how this is going to look when the talent is more even. And this year might tell us a lot about the way this rivalry is trending. Now, at the end of the day, you got to get it done. I'm not so sure that Kaylin DeBoer is a better big game coach than Hugh Freeze right now. I mean, if you look, in the big games that they had at Washington, he beat Oregon twice as coach, and we saw them, make a really good run. But the Pac is different than the SEC. Now you're in the SEC. He inherited the most talented team, arguably any coach has ever had, and missed the playoffs in his first year, Jacob. Meanwhile, Hugh Freeze is continuing to rack up talent, and I think to answer this question, we've got to see what these guys do with the talent at the end of the day, right? Are you getting better with the talent that you have, or are you getting worse? Alabama may have a higher floor than Auburn right now, but I'm not so sure they have a higher ceiling.
It's a good question to kind of ponder here in early June, where you look at what Alabama had when Kalen DeBoer showed up, and it was like, well, he could just show up to the stadium and they're going to win 8 or 9 games in his first year, and that's kind of what happened last year. And then they had every chance to make it to the playoff, but they scored 3 points against Oklahoma, and that was pretty much that. That's the game that Alabama fans have sat on since the offseason and throughout this offseason and going into next year is, well, we could have been a playoff team, but we fumbled the bag against Oklahoma. They're trying to decide in Tuscaloosa right now, Mike, can we trust this guy? Is he going to get it done in big-time games and big-time moments? And I don't think it's fair, because we try to do this with Auburn and we try to do it with other teams too. It's not fair to judge him on just 1 year or just one game. Year 2 is a big deal. It's going to be a big deal for Kaylin DeBoer in Tuscaloosa. It was obviously a big deal for Hugh Freeze in Auburn because he went backwards. He took a step back in year 2, did Hugh Freeze. And so can Kaylin DeBoer avoid that? We're going to see. I think their schedule is still really tough. They've still got some fun games on there, but can Alabama win with the talent they have? And then you said something too. Can they continue to get talent in the door? Because if Auburn starts winning games this year, recruiting may flip right back to Hugh Freeze at Auburn for years to come. I think it's definitely getting there. But if Auburn starts to win some games, Alabama's in real trouble in terms of landing some of the top players in the state of Alabama and in the Southeast. And one thing I like, too, is the fact that Auburn isn't afraid to go to Texas or North Carolina or Illinois or whatever, California, to go and get the top high school players. And it all comes back to, can you develop, can you win, and can you get them to the league? And Alabama as a program has that. Kaylin DeBoer, not so much right now. Auburn as a program, yeah, it's got it here and there. Hugh Freeze, as of right now, not so much.
Yeah, look, Hugh's got work to do in terms of the results on the field. But you said something I want to expound on, and that's once the results on the field start to come, the floodgates could open. Yeah. If you're Alabama, you kind of have seen the peak of it already. As a matter of fact, there's nowhere to go but backwards from what Nick Saban was doing. So his job is kind of to hold serve, and it's Hugh Freeze's job to increase in a situation where there was really nowhere to go but up. So they've done a really good job of that so far without the results on the field. This year, the schedule sets up for them to be able to show a little bit more something on the field and hopefully open those doors even more. But in terms of the results on the field, this could be one of the most pivotal Iron Bowls we've seen in some time that could decide the future of not only this rivalry for years to come, but the conference. Hear me out. If Auburn wins this Iron Bowl in Hugh Freeze's third year with all the talent they have, I think Cam Coleman is going to be one of the top 3 receivers in the country this year. They're talking about Eric Singleton like he could be a first-round draft pick. They say he's got low 4.2 speed, Jacob. You've got Perry Thompson. You've got an embarrassment of riches at wide receiver. And they think they have the quarterback that they want. Now, many games last season, you and I sat in that post-game press conference with Hugh Freeze where he said, well, we had to shrink the offense to, to what the guys could do. The tone is completely different this year. As a matter of fact, they're not talking about shirking anything. They're talking about expanding what they're doing because they feel like they have the guys to do it. If they expand what they're doing and Jackson Arnold is a successful SEC quarterback at Hugh Freeze's third year, I think that this thing is going to tilt way in Auburn's favor.
And hopefully so. And that's what Auburn fans are wanting. And the fact that Auburn, and we've talked about the schedule a lot this year, it's like the Iron Bowl could set up to be somewhat of a play-in game for a college football playoff between Auburn and Alabama, because I expect the Crimson Tide to have a couple of losses this year. I expect Auburn to have a couple of losses this year, but both teams could go into the Iron Bowl at the end of November after Thanksgiving in Jordan-Hare, and the winner stays alive for the playoff and the loser goes to a bowl game that nobody cares about. It could come down to that. Will it? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But how awesome would that be in such young tenures? What was the stat last year that it was the youngest or the fewest amount of years that each coach was at Alabama and Auburn combined in an Iron Bowl or something like that, wow, with Freeze in year 2 and DeBoer in year 1, something along those lines. And the fact that you're now advanced into one more year of that, where Freeze is in a pivotal year 3 where his job could be on the line and Kalen DeBoer is going to be judged harder than he was a year ago. That could be a job-saving game, as it should be. It's the Iron Bowl. It should always be a job-pending game. It's like the big game between Michigan and Ohio State. I mean, it's important to beat your rivals, and Auburn has not done that yet under Hugh Freeze. It's time for them to do that in 2025.
Yeah, I think in year 3, you've got to beat one of your rivals. Which one is the most likely for Auburn to beat? Alabama or Georgia? We'll talk about that right after a quick word from our sponsors.
This episode of the Auburn Express is brought to you by our friends at the Vibe Vault. You can find them at 3462 Crosswinds Road, Suite E in Phoenix City, Alabama. That's right across the street from the Chattahoochee Valley Community College, next to Renfro's Supermarket and Marco's Pizza. The Vibe Vault. If you're in the Columbus, Phoenix City area and you're looking to get fresh for the weekend, get fresh for the weekend with the Vibe Vault. Not just barbers, lifestyle consultants. This episode of the Auburn Express is brought to you by our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit them at rogueshop.com. Use code REPORTER to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. My guy Richard, longtime sponsor of the show. We appreciate him. Also, our friends at Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldenscastiron.com/WR. Use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights and code TWR for $65 off fire pits and Kamado grills. The summer is here. You want to be outside with your family, around the grill, or just getting in shape. Work out, grill out, chill out with Golden's Cast Iron. Auburn's got to start beating their rivals. All this losing to Georgia and Alabama has to stop. Jacob.
Yes.
Which team are they most likely to beat in 2025? We just did a segment on whether Auburn has caught up to Georgia in terms of talent. Now we're talking about whether they've caught up to Alabama in terms of talent. Which one? Both these games are at home this year. Which one do you think Auburn is most likely to beat? Is it the Tide or is it the Bulldogs? I'm torn on this one, so I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
Well, you have to look at a couple of different things here, right? It's the fact that, yes, Hugh Freeze has not beat Georgia or Alabama yet. Auburn's 0-4 in his 2 years against those two teams. That, of course, is on the road and at home. You've had some close games with those two teams, and you've had some not-so-close games with those two teams. And some of the most heartbreak we've had over the last couple of years have been against Georgia and against Alabama. But you have to look at a couple of things. A, the rosters. B, the coaches, and C, where they fall in the schedule. We were just talking and comparing talent, right? I think Auburn is closer in talent to Alabama than they are at Georgia. Now, I don't think Georgia's as talented as they have been. I think they will have a, air quotes, side or a back step here for just a second in 2025. They're still going to be very good. They're still going to compete for a national championship, but I do think you'll see some holes here and there on that Georgia team. But with Alabama, their quarterback situation worries me a lot for them. And not that it worries Auburn fans, but looking at it through the scope of Alabama, that quarterback situation is worrisome. And can their defense hold? Can they avoid giving up the big plays like they did a year ago? I just think Auburn is closer to Alabama than Georgia in talent. And so I would give Auburn the edge there in terms of pulling off an upset, which I think it would be considered one to this point. You look at the coaches, we just talked about that, where Kalen DeBoer is still young in his Alabama tenure, but he's also coached in a national championship. He's proven he has shown he has what it takes to win big time games. Hugh Freeze, we're still kind of waiting on that. And so I would almost give the edge to Alabama. Then you start looking at the placement of these two games, and to compare Kirby and Hugh Freeze, that's kind of an obvious comparison. One has a couple of rings and the other one does not up to this point. But then you look at where Georgia and Alabama fall on Auburn's schedule. Auburn has a bye before Georgia comes to town. That's after the first 5 games of the season, with Baylor on the road, Oklahoma on the road, and Texas A&M on the road. You get a bye week, and then here comes Georgia for what is really your first meaningful home game of 2025. Is Auburn 5-0 in that game? Is Auburn 3-2 in that game? Are they 4-1? Are they 0-5? I don't know. That is a huge, huge part of why I just don't know how to predict Auburn and Georgia just yet. But what I do know is all the games after Georgia leading up to the Iron Bowl are very winnable for Auburn. Vanderbilt and Kentucky and Arkansas are all in that. Missouri is in there too. I trust Auburn to win those games and have momentum going into the Iron Bowl more than I trust them to win those 3 road games before Georgia comes to town. So if you haven't figured it out, I'm picking Alabama. I think Auburn has a better chance to beat Alabama in 2025 than they do against Georgia. You have a chance to beat both of them because it's inside Jordan-Hare, a place that has not been all that special the last couple of years. It needs to get back to that, and it can start with the Crimson Tide and the Iron Bowl this year.
You raise an interesting point about the schedules headed into the Iron Bowl. Auburn has Missouri, Arkansas, Kentucky, Vandy, Mercer headed into the Iron Bowl. And Alabama has Tennessee, South Carolina, LSU, Oklahoma, Eastern Illinois. Alabama clearly has the tougher slate headed into that game, if you ask me. I don't think it's particularly close. But the other thing that you said, Jacob, about who they're closer to in terms of talent right now, I agree with you. I think that Auburn is closer to Alabama in terms of total talent right now. But I would argue Auburn is also closer to Alabama in coaching than they are to Georgia in coaching right now, where Alabama has won championships, but Kalen DeBoer has not won any championships. He may have gotten there, but look, a lot of people have come close and lost it. Hell, Gus Malzahn got to a championship and lost it. That doesn't do a ton for me. But Kirby Smart has won, and recently, back-to-back, something that's rare in college football these days. So I think the coaching is a lot closer than we think. I know that Kalen DeBoer is a good coach. I'm not so sure what kind of SEC coach he is just yet. So the jury will be out on that. We'll tell as this becomes more and more his team in the coming years. But also, I'm looking at once the talent is even, and it really just comes down to preparation and getting your guys up for the game and having the better plan and the better assistants and the better support staff and the better everything. Who wins out? I'm not sure we can answer that question today, but the fact that we can't tells me that Auburn and Alabama are closer than they have been when Saban was there.
Yeah, and it has to be, man. It has to be, because that's all Auburn fans were waiting for was, well, when Nick Saban retires, we'll have a chance. Well, when he retires, maybe we'll get, better recruits and we'll have better chances to win. And here we are. You're in the era now. Auburn felt like they hired their guy in Hugh Freeze. You feel like year 3 is his year. It's the one he's asked for. You feel that it has to happen right now. This could be the turning point for the Auburn football program. And you're trying to kick a team while they're down, and they're not even that down. Alabama missed the playoff, and they're already going crazy in Tuscaloosa. You just have a chance to take advantage of this change that was made over there, and Auburn's done it in recruiting. You just got to do it on the field. And if you do, then Hugh Freeze probably saves his job. But if you go over again against Georgia and Alabama and lose a couple of more games in there too, it could be a short tenure for Freeze at Auburn. And I hate to say that, but at some point you have to break through, whether it's against the Vanderbilts and Kentuckys of the world or your biggest rivals in Georgia and Alabama. You have to break through, and you have an opportunity to do it right now.
They do have an opportunity to do it right now. Again, we're on the good part of that schedule. Will Georgia and Alabama come to Jordan-Hare for the Iron Bowl and that midseason matchup? If you recall, a few years ago, the SEC changed the scheduling and they broke that game up. So you were no longer playing Georgia and Alabama in a 3-week span if you're Auburn. Some fans hate that Georgia game is not in November anymore, but a lot of fans like that you don't have that gauntlet at the end of every season with those two practically back-to-back. I mean, it is really rough. I think for Auburn, if you having those two as your permanent rivals. So, look, a lot of changes has happened with the scheduling. One thing that will never change is Georgia coming off Auburn's rotation. I think that game stays no matter what. Same as the Iron Bowl. It's a game that's just always going to be played. But it's important that Auburn starts to win their fair share of those games if they're going to continue to make strides in recruiting the way that they have these first 2 years under Hugh Freeze. We'll be on Pins and Needles watching it. As always, Gittins and Goins will be here. Jacob, I want to thank you for joining me today. Before we get out of here, tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, if you are in the Auburn, Opelika area or just driving around coming on through, you can listen Monday through Friday, 2 to 4 on the line. It's the show I host with Christian Griffin every single day, ESPN 1067, or if you're listening across the state, across the country, ESPNAU.com. Monday through Friday, you can tune in right there.
If you're in the comments watching this after the video, do us a favor, smash that super thanks button. Show us some love. Help keep the content that we're doing going. That's it for another great edition of the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report. If you want more content like this, please hit like and subscribe. We are the War Report on every social media platform. TW Report on TikTok. We're signing off, and as always, War Eagle.